All that ass.
That is not acceptable. Shit. You in there now, shit.
She finna fall back over.
Thanks for the help, guys.
You got it? You got it? Okay.
Today we are going to speak her name loudly because everybody should be protected when they are asking for help.
The system failed to protect her.
It's the early hours of September 15th, 2025. A morning that begins like any other for Mariah Samuels. She moves through her routine, unaware that within hours, her world is about to turn into a nightmare. At 7:50 a.m., the Minneapolis Police Department receives multiple emergency calls, reports of gunfire outside a home on Russell Avenue North. Officers rush to the scene. When they arrive, the horror waiting for them is beyond imagination. Inside a vehicle parked on the roadside, Mariah lies partially slumped across the seat. The sight is chilling. But the true shock isn't just what happens, it's how it unfolds. This isn't a random shooting. It's a public execution, broadcast live for the world to see. And the man holding the gun? Her own husband, freshly out of prison. Before pulling the trigger, he looks into the camera and says words that pierce through the silence.
Let me tell you something to all you bitches who don't have an identity and who is upset about mine. Find yourself, bitch. This Tommy shit.
But before this moment of horror, Mariah's story begins somewhere else. Let's go back to where her path first crosses with Tommy and uncover 5 red flags that can protect anyone walking the same road Mariah now walks. Before we keep it rolling, big shout out to everyone showing love and supporting the channel. We appreciate y'all for real. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and let us know your thoughts down in the comments. All right, let's get back to the story. Mariah Rosanna Samuels was born on January 23, 1991 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. From an early age, she possessed a magnetic warmth that drew people in, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who crossed her path. Her love for life was evident in the way she embraced every day with a radiant smile and a genuine enthusiasm for the people around her. She was known for her positive attitude and her ability to make others feel special, whether they were close friends or casual acquaintances. As a mother, Mariah was nothing short of dedicated. At 34 years old, she had already built a life that many would envy, one that combined her career, her children, and a close-knit family that she adored.
She loves animals. She loved her son. She was sweet. She was outgoing. She was free-spirited. We loved each other. She's my everything.
Care in the world. When you get money, you don't have a care. Roger that. Roger that.
You're trying to ruin my day, and I'm not gonna let you. Kisses!
She worked tirelessly as a pet groomer at Petco and Fidley, where she was not only highly skilled, but also deeply loved by her colleagues. She loves animals. She loved her son. She was sweet. She was outgoing. She was free-spirited. Jasmine Brown, a co-worker, would later recall that Mariah had a special gift with animals, especially with dogs. Aggressive dogs seemed to calm instantly in her hands, a testament to her calming presence and the genuine care she gave to every animal. Mariah's reputation in the workplace wasn't just about her skills as a groomer, but also her infectious personality. She had an uncanny ability to lift the spirits of her coworkers, always making the environment feel like a second home. But Mariah wasn't just defined by her job or her role as a mother. She was a woman of adventure, with a deep thirst for travel that led her to explore parts of the world many could only dream of: Thailand, Mexico, Jamaica. These were just a few of the places Mariah visited, each trip an opportunity to embrace new cultures and create memories that she would treasure forever. No matter where she went, her smile was always as bright as the landscape she explored. She often shared her travels with her friends and followers on social media, showcasing her infectious curiosity and sense of wonder for the world. Whether it was hiking in the jungles of Thailand or relaxing on a beach in Jamaica, Mariah approached every new experience with an open heart and a sense of adventure that made her seem unstoppable. Yet, as we look at Mariah's life, a life full of promise and love, it's impossible to ignore the tragic turn of events that would soon shatter everything. But what could have led to such a devastating end for a woman so full of life and promise? I'm not going to lie, it's low-key scary watching you from afar getting fine and healing from everything you done been through. I'm looking at you like, despite all the love Mariah had for her family, her life was overshadowed by a relationship that would cause her so much pain. She could never imagine 50-year-old David Wright, who had served 15 years in prison, entered Mariah's life in the spring of 2025. He had presented himself as a man who had learned from his past mistakes, ready to start anew. The exact details of their first encounter remain a bit of a mystery. Some people say they crossed paths through mutual friends, while others believe it was simply a chance meeting. Regardless of how it happened, what truly matters is that by May they had become inseparable and were officially dating, marking a new chapter for both of them. David Eugene Wright's federal identification number was 0589104, a number he'd carried since 2006. That year, the District Court of Minnesota convicted him on drug possession charges. It wasn't his first arrest, nor would it be his last. Sadly, this wouldn't be the last time he found himself on the wrong side of the law. It was, however, the conviction that placed him firmly in the federal system, the one that should have led to closer monitoring, stricter supervision, and more oversight. But this was only the beginning. For Mariah, a single mother juggling work and her responsibilities, David at first seemed like a stabilizing force, someone who offered to help with errands, showed interest in her kids, and brought flowers to her workplace. But as their relationship progressed, it became clear that David's version of affection was toxic and controlling. He became obsessed with Mariah, tracking her every move and demanding more of her time and attention. He had Mariah scheduled down to an unsettling science. Petco opened at 9 a.m., and he knew she always arrived by 8:15. Her younger son's school let out at 3:25, and he'd be there driving by at 3:25 like clockwork. Tuesday nights were for grocery runs, and Thursday evenings meant visiting her sister Simone. It was as though he'd memorized every aspect of her routine, an invisible presence in her daily life. He stalked and he searched and he looked and he's been around the block watching, and he got her. By June, her friends started noticing the sudden shift. Mariah, who had once shared everything so freely on social media, became increasingly silent online. During gatherings, her phone would ring constantly. She'd step away to answer, always returning with the forced smile, as if everything was fine, though clearly it wasn't. By July, David's behavior was no longer just an inconvenience. It was becoming dangerous. He began showing up uninvited at places Mariah planned to go, including one instance when he arrived at a restaurant where she was meeting her aunt, even though Mariah had not mentioned his presence there. As the months passed, David decided to end the relationship. In a Facebook post, Mariah didn't hold back. She expressed her pain and frustration over the abuse she had endured, letting the world know what she was going through. The post laid bare the reality of her situation, how deeply she felt the betrayal, and how sickened she was by the cowardice of someone who could hurt her like that. Her voice rang out against the abuse, demanding accountability in a world that often stayed silent. But Mariah's decision to end the relationship led to a terrifying confrontation. On August 26, 2025, David showed up at her back door uninvited, and when she refused to let him in, he began circling her house, trying windows and rattling door orc knobs. Mariah's friend, who was on the phone with her at the time, could hear the escalating situation through the phone. But David wasn't done. David became aggressive, and when he found an unlocked window, he forced himself inside. He grabbed Mariah's phone and tried to destroy it, hitting her with his pistol multiple times. The friend dialed 911, her heart racing as she heard Mariah's screams in the background. What transpired inside that house would later be recorded in medical reports and court documents, each detail adding to the chilling narrative of what happened. The assault left Mariah with bruises, knots, and marks on her body. She filed a protection order that same day, but the horror was far from over. By August 29th, David was served with the protection order, which prohibited him from contacting Mariah or coming near her home, workplace, or children's schools. Any violation would lead to immediate arrest. Mariah blocked him on every social media platform except for Facebook. For the next 2 weeks, David seemed to comply. Finally, Mariah started to breathe a little easier. She started feeling safe enough to walk to her car without constantly checking over her shoulder. For a moment, it seemed like the system was finally working. But that won't be for long. In August, Mariah's 34th birthday arrived. David had been planning for weeks. At least that's what he told everyone. He'd bought gifts, made reservations, and set up elaborate surprises. On the day of her birthday, he arrived at her house with an armful of gifts. Jewelry, perfume, clothes, all still wrapped as though nothing had changed. But Mariah refused to open the door. Through the glass, she told him to leave, her voice firm but weary. He wouldn't listen. For 3 agonizing hours, he sat on her front steps, relentlessly calling out to her, reminding her of their good times together, making promises to change and repeating declarations of love that felt increasingly possessive with each passing minute. It wasn't love. It was ownership disguised as affection. Then, on September 12, 2025, her phone buzzed. A new message appeared. However, the violation of this order was inevitable, and Mariah's safety remained uncertain. The situation would escalate dramatically in the days that followed, leading to Mariah's tragic death. In what would be her final and desperate post on Facebook, she expressed her frustration with the legal system and her fear for her safety. She wrote, documenting the failure of the system she had trusted to protect her. David had violated the order yet again, and Mariah's final post became a chilling foreshadowing of the violence that would follow. The morning of September 15, 2025, began like any other, but it quickly turned into a nightmare. At 7:50 a.m., Mariah, preparing to leave for work, sat in her Jeep Cherokee parked in her driveway. It was then that David Wright, on a stolen bicycle, approached her home. He had planned his attack carefully, knowing Mariah's routine. Suddenly, a gunshot would be heard. The first shot shattered the driver's side window, followed by a barrage of gunfire. Witnesses reported hearing 15 shots in rapid succession as David moved around the vehicle, firing through the driver door and passenger side. The attack lasted less than 30 seconds. And when the gunfire ceased, Mariah lay lifeless in her car, her body riddled with gunshot wounds. The police were immediately called and officers arrived at the scene to find Mariah's body still in the driver's seat. The bullet struck with devastating accuracy, inflicting multiple wounds to her torso, arms, and head. At 8:09 a.m., Mariah Rosanna Samuels was pronounced dead at the scene. The crime scene was processed, and investigators discovered that the shooter had deliberately positioned himself around the vehicle, ensuring that Mariah would not survive. This was not a random act of violence. It was a calculated, premeditated execution. The investigation into Mariah's death began immediately. The stolen bicycle was found leaning against a garage 2 blocks away with David's fingerprints clearly visible on the handlebars and seat post. When contacted, the owner confirmed it had been stolen from their unlocked shed sometime between midnight and 6 a.m. David had even planned this carefully, selecting a mode of transportation that wouldn't be traced back to him, something he could discard without a second thought. Police soon learned that Mariah's protection order had been violated numerous times, and they started putting the pieces together. Despite David's attempts to flee, investigators knew exactly who they were looking for. Within hours of the murder, law enforcement agencies across the state were on high alert, and federal marshals were called in due to David's federal probation status. The hunt for David Wright escalated quickly. With his photos circulating on patrol cars and the involvement of the U.S. Marshal Service, authorities were determined to track him down. As the manhunt intensified, David's every move is being monitored. Meanwhile, Mariah's family struggled to comprehend the brutal loss of their loved one. They had all witnessed Mariah's bravery in trying to protect herself, from filing for the protection order to documenting every violation. Yet here they were grappling with the harsh reality that their daughter, sister, and mother was gone. Hours passed, and David, realizing the authorities were closing in, made his next move. He checked into a motel on Highway 10 under a fake name, paying in cash. But his luck was running out. The motel manager alerted the police after a guest matching David's description checked in. The arrest operation unfolded swiftly with 17 officers from multiple agencies surrounding the building, cutting off all escape routes. At 3:14 a.m., they breached the door to David's room and found him sitting on the bed fully dressed, his hands already raised in surrender. When officers asked if he had been expecting them, David responded coldly, saying he knew they would find him. His lack of resistance and the eerie calm with which he awaited his arrest made it clear he had fully expected the consequences of his actions. As they secured him, David's only question was chilling. Did she suffer? His words echoed the chilling disregard he had for Mariah's life and the pain he had inflicted. The police had already gathered a wealth of evidence, including Mariah's final posts on social media, security footage, and eyewitness accounts. But the discovery of David's chilling confession added another layer to the case. During questioning following his arrest, David reportedly told police this isn't going to be a tough case and urged them to read a text exchange with Mariah, claiming it would explain his actions. He confessed to the crime, detailing the events leading up to the murder, including how Mariah had rejected him and how he felt humiliated by her decision to seek a protection order. In his mind, her actions had become justification for his murderous rage. David's words revealed a disturbing pattern of obsession and control that had escalated over time. His claim that Mariah was seeing another man was unfounded, and his accusations about her trying to destroy his reputation were baseless. Yet these were the rationalizations he used to justify his deadly actions. As the investigation continued, troubling details began to emerge. David Wright's history of relationship violence and restraining orders wasn't new. By 2020, a disturbing pattern had begun to emerge, a pattern that would only become horrifyingly clear in hindsight. The same man who had once been incarcerated for drug possession had left a trail of destruction in his wake, yet the system had failed to stop him. That year, a woman filed for a protection order against him, and in her petition, she wrote words that would resonate long after the court granted her request, and for a time, David stayed away. But just 2 years later, in 2022, the cycle repeated. Another woman at the same courthouse sought yet another protection order. This petition contained details that should have set off every alarm in the system. The Federal Probation Office had access to David's file. They knew about the restraining orders. They knew about the gun violation that kept him under supervision. Both women from 2020 and 2022 survived their encounters with David. They moved, changed their phone numbers, and lived in fear, constantly looking over their shoulders. They were the warnings the system failed to heed. They were the pattern that, if recognized, might have predicted the tragedy that would later befall Mariah Samuels. In the aftermath of the assault on Mariah that led to the protection order in August 2025, police had documented David's violent behavior, yet the case had never been forwarded for prosecution, and the protection order had become a mere piece of paper, a symbol of the system's failure to protect Mariah. David Wright's arrest marked the beginning of the legal battle for justice for Mariah Samuels. His capture, however, did not erase the pain and trauma left in the wake of the crime. As Mariah's family members gathered in the courtroom during his initial appearance, the emotional toll was clear. David was charged with second-degree murder and illegal firearm possession. Magistrate Judge Patricia Kelly set his bail at $1 million, a substantial amount meant to ensure he would remain behind bars as he awaited trial. The community's reaction to Mariah's murder was swift and unrelenting. People in Minneapolis who knew her were devastated by the senseless violence, and the city rallied around her family, offering support, condolences, and solidarity. As her family worked through the trauma, they found themselves at the center of a much larger conversation about domestic violence, protection orders, and the failure of the system. In the days following Mariah's death, A vigil was organized at her home on Russell Avenue.
Today we are going to speak her name loudly because everybody should be protected when they are asking for help. Mariah's life matters! Mariah's life matters!
The system failed to protect her.
The vigil was a solemn reminder that the pain of losing a loved one to violence never truly fades. As Mariah's family and the community continue to want her death, the tragic reality of this case raises important questions that deserve answers. How can a system that is supposed to protect victims of domestic violence continue to fail? Mariah had done everything right. She had filed protection orders, documented the abuse, and shared evidence with the world. Yet, it wasn't enough to save her life. Her tragic death is not an isolated incident, but rather a reflection of a much larger issue, one that has claimed the lives of too many women before her. Mariah Samuels was not just a victim. She was a fighter. She fought to protect herself, to live her life on her terms, and to give her children a better future. Even in the face of unrelenting fear and abuse, she fought until the end, leaving behind undeniable proof of her courage. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe to the Viral Crime Stories for more stories like this.